Thinking aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
I first did some rough and crude pilot studies, and I did them in a very interesting way. I was teaching an upper-level undergraduate course on experimental psychology, and there are exercises you can run people through on how to do experiments. But I said, no, let's do this like an apprenticeship situation, where you're doing a real experiment that will actually teach us something, and you're doing it with somebody who's supposedly expert on it. As the instructor, I'm defined as expert. Some truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that made it much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first real rough and ready one, we did it in a much more formal way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first we needed people who had some talent in ESP to begin with.
You had to pre-screen them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my students, roughly 20 students in the class, divide up into teams of 2 or 3 people, and they would go and beg other instructors to have the last 10 minutes of one of their class to do a mass ESP test with the students in their class, you know, which could vary from anywhere from 15 or 20 students to several hundred students. Pass out a response form, and they do a little quick card guessing thing up front.
Well, that's amazing that you didn't lose your tenure right then and there.
It's hard to get tenure, but it's harder to lose it, fortunately. Some people would have done it if they could have, but that's another...
But now you're involving the whole psychology department in your research.
Well, no, actually, most of these were non-psychology classes.
Oh,
they could go to any classes that they knew the instructor
Yeah, because traditionally psychologists are the most hostile.
Yes. And I'll tell you an interesting fact I found. J.B. Rhine became famous for his ESP research and was very widely known to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a job at Duke University. And as far as psychology and parapsychology went, I think he put Duke on the map. You know, it was a good school, but it was relatively unknown before that. You know, and then this famous ESP researcher.
He became virtually the most famous professor at Duke.
Yes.
And you were there.
Yes. But then what happened was that the other psychology department professors would be going off to conferences and all that. And when people found out they were from Duke, they said, "Oh, do you work with J.B. Rhine?"
Mm-hmm.
And they hated it because they thought this ESP stuff was absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
The interesting fact I learned was that someone was recently writing a secretary in the psychology department for doing a historical survey. Asked, "Do you ever get any letters from J.B. Rhine anymore, even though he's been dead for many years?" And they said, they get more letters from J.B. Rhine than for all the rest of the psychology faculty
put together.
Still there every year. So, you know, his host is still making the psychologist embarrassed.
Yeah.
Psychologists are super defensive about ESP.
Mm-hmm.
As one of my graduate school professors used to say, you know, it was only 100 years ago they let us out of the philosophy department, and some of them would like to put us back and say we're just talking empty words, you know, so we want to be real scientists.
And yeah, compared to physicists, they're at the bottom of the pecking order of scientists.
Exactly, yeah. So there are a few, maybe economists are down there even worse. But so there was a lot of resistance to doing this kind of thing,
But you were able to get other professors, not psychologists, to help out with this study.
Yeah, and you know, who knows how selective that was. Maybe it was professors who were bored teaching the same class over and over again. They'd love to have somebody take the last 10 minutes. Anyway, they screened roughly 2,000 students this way. And we said any individual student who made a very high score on this we would consider possibly talented. Possibly because when you test so many students, some are going to score high by chance alone. You know, if you take odds of 1 in 20 as significant, then 1 out of 20 students is going to look significant by accident. A couple of thousand students, you've got dozens and dozens of people who aren't really talented. But that's all right. We'll take the ones who seem to be talented and bring them in for an individual test session on either of 2 machines where there's no problem with sensory leakage. And by chance alone, the odds of someone scoring significantly if they have no ESP on 2 consecutive tests are very low. So anybody who continued to score high in this, we said they've got potential talent. Let's put them in the training study where we're now going to give them feedback to see if they can learn.